It's time to get in the game.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to this very special episode of the Get in the Game podcast, the podcast where we explore ways to get off the sidelines, stop making excuses, and get in the game. I'm your coach, Trevor Dean, and today's episode is special because I'm recording this on my 3-year wedding anniversary to my wife, and I couldn't be happier that we are in this position to be able to do this. That we've spent the last 3 years together. It's been such an amazing time, and I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. It's probably not going to be the longest episode ever, but I'm going to kind of go over some key verses in the Bible that are very, very special to me, and that kind of give us some guidance on what it's like or what we should be doing as husbands, because that's the only thing I can speak on is being a husband. So even if you are a wife or if you are unmarried, hopefully this blesses you anyway. But before we do that, I want to say a very special happy anniversary. I love you, Brit. Thank you so much for making me so happy and completing this dream I've had for my whole life, that you are my dream come true, and I am so special. I feel special because you have chosen me in this life. So again, thank you. I love you. And hopefully this honors you as much as it blesses others. First, I want to start off in James, the book of James. This was the brother of Jesus, and he is writing his letter. And in James 1:17, it starts off, or this verse says, every good thing given and everything, sorry, let me start over. Every good thing given and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. This is saying that everything that we get in this world that is good and perfect is a gift from God, is a gift from the Father above. And he doesn't vary. He is unchanging. The shifting shadow makes reference to, as the sun moves and all this other stuff, our shadow can change. It gets longer, it gets shorter. If there's cloud cover, maybe there isn't any shadow. He is constant, and he is giving us good and perfect gifts in this life. And so the way I see it is, my wife is that gift from him. She is a good thing. She is, even though we're not perfect beings, she is the perfect person for me. That's how I feel. And she is a gift from the Father above. And I thank him as much as I can for giving me this life to be able to share with her. In Proverbs, it goes on to say, in Proverbs 18, verse 22, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. So even there in Proverbs, it's saying that if I find a wife whom I have, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that I have a wife. And not only in that, I can find favor in the Lord with that. Now, that doesn't mean just, at least it seems like it doesn't just mean just because I have a wife I find favor. I have to also be a good husband. I have to be able to fulfill my husbandly role in the biblical sense of a husband to her, and I will find favor. It is a role that obviously not everyone will get. Some people choose not to. Some people feel like they're called not to marry, and other people do. So in those roles, that extra role I have in my life now of being a husband, I have to fulfill that. And in that, as long as I'm fulfilling it in that godly way, then I believe I will find favor with the Lord. Because if I don't treat my wife well, or if I am a poor husband, then I'm gonna have um, troubles in marriage, in my life. There's gonna be it's not gonna be a smooth road, and those of you who are married already know that not every road you go down in marriage is a smooth ride. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of humbling of yourself, a lot of giving of yourself to the other person. So I have an obligation to treat my wife the way God wants me to treat her. And in that, believe that I will find favor with the Lord in doing so. And sticking with that same theme of good things and good gifts from God, and again in Proverbs, a little further down in chapter 31, verse 10, it says, "An excellent wife who can find? For her worth is far above jewels." So it's just saying that when you have an excellent wife, if you can find an excellent wife, and I have an excellent wife, it is far more valuable than any earthly jewel, trinket, money, precious metal, anything like that. It is so much more valuable, not only to my soul, to my heart, to my my well-being, my mental health. She is so much more important than any of those things. And I can speak for myself here in saying that there's nothing in this world that I would trade her for. No amount of money, no amount of things, no particular type of possession, nothing can compare to what I have in my wife. And again, I thank God that I have that, because it's saying right here is a good thing. And I am so ecstatic that I get to experience this on the side of eternity. Again, I'm going to one more before we move on, but I'm going to also stick with that the gifting of a wife. Again in Proverbs, going back up to chapter 19, verse 14. It says, "House and wealth are an inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord." And in this time, if you kind of get some context of when it's written, getting an inheritance, having wealth, having a house, having property, all that stuff came from an inheritance, especially if you were a man. Not that it was great for women at the time, but at the time, women really didn't have a lot of rights in terms of owning land or wealth and stuff. It was wrapped up in their husbands, in their children, and that would be in their sons. So I believe this is speaking to men right here, obviously, because it's talking about having a wife. But it says the house and wealth are an inheritance, so that that stuff you're gonna get because you're born into it. But the wife, a prudent wife, means God is giving you this person to be your partner, to be your for lack of a better term, your ride or die, as people say it now, is the person that you will be spending your life with, that God has brought you to. And I take that very seriously. When, I truly believe that my wife, that Brit, has been entrusted to me to spend our lives together, and that we, as far as our lives go, because obviously we know that not all marriages end up in two people dying of old age and it ending in that way. Sometimes things happen and people die early, but we are committed to being that death do us part. We are committed to that. And that time that we have together, we are committed to being each other's and no one else's. And it's so reassuring knowing that other person feels that way also, and is going to live out their days in the same way that you are for your spouse, not giving up anything else, knowing that each other is working as hard as they can to make it work. That's a beautiful thing. So to get a little context of how we're supposed to love our wives, and this part right here isn't necessarily just husbands loving your wives. This is actually a picture of what God says love is supposed to be like. And this is love of all people, but it's definitely tested in the waters of marriage for sure. It's a very popular passage. You've probably heard of it. You've probably read it. You've probably heard it at weddings. If you're not a Christian, you've probably still heard it at weddings, or even heard people say it in movies or in TV shows. It's very heavily quoted at times. It's 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. And those verses are, love is patient, love is kind, and it is not jealous. Love does not brag, and it is not arrogant. Does not act unbecomingly. It does not seek its own. It is not provoked. Does not take into account a wrong suffered. Does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. There's so much in there to unpack, and we're not going to necessarily do that all today, but not everything in there sounds great or fun. It says it bears all things. It endures all things. And I think that's where we get that in sickness and in health. You can endure sickness and you can endure health. Usually health is a lot easier, but it also means that you can get through other situations. Times of, in those traditional vows, the richer for poor, that sort of stuff. It means that you're committing to be there and love each other through all of it. Whether I'm a jerk on some days or whether I am the most loving husband in the world, that means she's going to love me, and vice versa. In the beginning of it, it says it's patient and it's kind. We all know people who aren't very patient, and it doesn't mean that if you aren't the most patient person that you don't love people. It just means that, hey, maybe you need to take some time to work on that. All these things here paint a really good picture of what we're supposed to do to love other people, and especially our spouse. And if you lack in some of these areas, and maybe this is the type of thing where you need to pray for. These are the areas in your life where you need work, that you need God to intervene, and you need Him to give you the strength to get through it. Last podcast, I mentioned Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And this is that context that maybe sometimes you don't have the strength to be patient. You don't have the strength to not be provoked, or you don't have the strength to hold back when the other person did something that was wrong, and you just need that strength to get through it, to hold back if it's to lash out and call them out on them being wrong. That's the sort of stuff that we deal with every single day in every relationship we come to. And that in our marriages, it's even more important, because we are supposed to love our spouse above others. Love our spouse first, and then that goes out to the rest. You move on, and you are supposed to strengthen each other in marriage to then go out and do work for God, to love others. In Ephesians chapter 5, verses 25 and 18. So I'm skipping 26 and 27 in that, but it says kind of the same thing. It says, husbands, in verse 25, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. So the church is the body of believers, is the people who believe that Jesus is the Son of God, who came down, lived a perfect life, died for our sins, was buried and resurrected on the third day. And then resurrected on the third day. He wasn't buried and resurrected on the third day. And he's now the way that we can have eternal life. He gave up his life for the purpose of the church, for us, for those of us who believe. He gave it up for everyone, but the people who believe is the church, because he loved us so much. And it says right here, that's how we're supposed to love our wives, is to be willing to give up our lives so that they might have more abundant lives. In verse 28, it says, so husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself. So it's saying that the relationship, the union between husband and wife is so important. It's your own flesh. It's your own person. So if you love your wife that much, that means you love yourself. So we're to believe with this that if we don't love our wives, we probably don't love ourselves. Or if we don't love ourselves, then we're not doing a very good job of loving our wives. They work hand in hand. Because it says it right there at the end, he who loves his own wife loves himself. So even if we feel like, if you do a really good job of loving your wife, but you don't really feel like you love yourself, know that the truth of the matter is, because you love your wife, you do love yourself. That might not make a lot of sense, and to tell you the truth, it's hard to completely wrap my mind around it, but that's the way that God is. Knowing when you can love your wife that so much that it actually brings joy to your life. You do it because it brings joy not only to her, but it brings joy to you as well. And then in Colossians, it says, Colossians 3:19, it says, husbands, love your wives and do not be embittered against them. He's basically saying, just love your wives. Don't be horrible towards them. Don't be bitter for anything they do. Do your job and love your wives. And that is, it's just a strong statement, and it's good advice. We're called to love our wives in a way that is willing to put our lives on the line for them if need be. And in the meantime, don't be embittered towards them. Don't treat them like garbage. They're to be elevated to your equal, your partner. And you're not to hold them down. So honor them, love them, give your life for them if need be, because that's what husbands do. I'm telling you, just reading all these things and researching these things before I started recording, it's very emboldening, I guess. Like it kind of convicts you. It kind of says, hey, this is what you're supposed to be as a husband, and you need to step up if you're not that way. And so I hope these things that I've mentioned are have blessed you, have hit you well, have got you thinking of ways that maybe you can be you can fulfill your husbandly duty, or if you're not married, of things you should be looking for, and the mindset and the heart set that you need to be in to go into that life of marriage with someone. That's not easy. It's not gonna come as just something simple. If life has come simple to you up to this point, I tell you what, marriage, having someone else who has equal say in the relationship and in finances and everything else, it's hard, because sometimes you might be real easy going and be the type that will yield decisions, but that doesn't mean the other person wants to make them. So then sometimes there's a give and take, and you have to step up. Sometimes you have to step back. But if you work it out together and you're willing to, you're committed to making it work, you're committed to getting through each and every instance you come through, trial, joy, heartache, if you're willing to do that together and never leave the other person hanging, then you are going to, I believe, have a successful marriage. But you have to keep God first in all of it. You have to keep that relationship with Jesus at the forefront of your marriage, because even if it seems to be going well, if God isn't the center, there will be times where it's easy to forget all the things that I've mentioned here and kind of go your own way, and it's not a good thing to do. So I encourage you to keep Jesus first in your marriage. Before I leave, I'm going to leave you with one last one. And this is for everyone. And it says in 1 Corinthians 7:3, it says, the husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. That's just joyful to me. I like that. I'll leave that one right there for you guys. Just a little tidbit for you guys. Thanks again so much for the listening to it, for the viewership, for the listening. I'm excited, and I'm just overjoyed in this process and this journey that we've gone to. This is episode 30, and it's been 30 amazing episodes to do for you. I've enjoyed it all. Sometimes I'm super prepared, sometimes I'm not that prepared, but in all of it, you guys have shown great love. As always, like, share, comment. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll keep pumping this stuff out. Hopefully it's blessing you. Love you guys. Praying for you. Like always, let's get off the sidelines, stop making excuses, and get in the game. Take care, guys. See you next week.
Get in the game. Thank you for listening to the Get in the Game podcast. Please take a second to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. That's the best way to support us. Find us on YouTube and subscribe for more content. If you would like for us to pray for you, or if you have topics that you would like us to tackle in upcoming episodes, email us at getinthegamepodcast@gmail.com. That's getinthegamepodcast@gmail.com. Or hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at getinthegamepc. If you've experienced getting off the sidelines and getting into the game yourself, please let us know. And remember, it's time to get in the game.